Sylvain Dore had never once looked at her. Not when she handed him the revised contract for the Harbor Point development. Not when she stayed until 11 on a Thursday to fix the numbers his last assistant had scrambled. Not when she brought him black coffee every morning without being asked because she had noticed quietly the way he reached for his cup before he even sat down. 9 months. Mireille Cote had worked 9 months in that building on St. Patrick Street, and to Sylvain Dore she was furniture. Which was fine. She had told herself that many times over. It was fine. She was not there to be seen. She was there because the rent on her mother's apartment in Verdun had gone up $200, and her sister's physiotherapy wasn't covered, and someone in the family had to hold the whole thing together. She was there because the salary was exceptional and the work was, if she was honest, genuinely interesting. Even if the man at the center of it barely registered that she existed. Sylvain Dore was 41. He had built Dore Group from a mid-sized property firm his father had left half bankrupt into something that made city councilors return calls within the hour. He wore suits that fit like they had been made for him specifically, which they had. He spoke in a way that made people lean forward slightly, as if afraid they might miss something. He had a scar along his jaw that he never explained and eyes the color of the St. Lawrence in November. Gray and deep and not particularly warm. He was not a good man in the way that the word good usually means. Mireille had understood that within her first week, the meetings she scheduled involved people she would not want to meet alone. The calls she routed came from numbers with no names attached. She had learned not to ask about the side of his work that lived below the surface of the legitimate ledger, because the one time she had, accidentally, asking about a discrepancy in a wire transfer, his assistant before her had apparently cleaned out her desk that same afternoon. Mireille had learned to be useful and invisible. She was good at both. She kept her hair pinned back. She wore gray and navy and the occasional dark green. She answered emails at 6 in the morning and again at 11 at night. She did not eat lunch at her desk because she had learned that the sound of anyone eating near his office made Sylvain Dore's jaw tighten in a way that meant the afternoon would be difficult for everyone. She knew his preferences the way you know a weather system. You do not take it personally, you just adjust. 9 months of adjusting, and then Mathieu Ouellet walked into the office on a Tuesday in March. He was a contractor, new, brought in to consult on the green infrastructure component of the Lakeshore West project. Mid-30s, easy smile, the kind of person who made eye contact with everyone in a room, as though each of them specifically mattered. He introduced himself to Mireille at the front desk while she was sorting through a stack of amended permits, and he said her name after she told him. Actually used it, Mireille, as if filing it away, and asked if she'd had a chance to look at the weather because apparently it was going to be genuinely beautiful by Thursday, and did she know any good spots along the waterfront. She laughed. She had not laughed in that office in so long that the sound surprised her slightly. Parc des Écluses, she said. If you can get there before noon. I'll remember that, Mathieu said, and he smiled at her like she'd given him something useful. It was nothing. It was a 30-second conversation about a park. Mireille turned back to her permits and forgot about it almost immediately, because there were 14 things she needed to accomplish before 2 o'clock, and she had learned not to let small pleasures distract her. She did not see Sylvain Dore standing in the doorway of the inner corridor. She did not see the way he had stopped. She did not see the way he looked at Mathieu Ouellet, and then, for the first time slowly, as if recalibrating something. At her, he called her into his office at 3. This was not unusual. She went in with her tablet and her notepad, same as always, and stood at the appropriate distance from his desk, same as always, and waited. He did not speak for a moment. He was looking at the window. The St. Lawrence was gray and bright at the same time, the way it gets in early spring when the ice has broken, but the cold is still in the water. The Hewlett consultation, he said. You'll be the point of contact. Mireille blinked. I thought Renault was handling the contractor liaison. I'm reassigning it. He still wasn't looking at her. You're more organized. This was, objectively, true. Renault was charming and catastrophically bad at follow-through, but that had been true for the 8 months prior to today, and Sylvain Dore had never once suggested reassigning anything to Mireille on account of it. All right, she said, because she had learned not to push. I'll reach out to Monsieur Ouellet to set a schedule this week. Of course. She turned to go. Cote. She stopped. He never used her last name. He never used any name for her, actually. She was generally you or the recipient of a gesture toward a chair or a document. Yes, she said. He had turned from the window and was looking at her now with an expression she couldn't read, which was, she would later think, the first time she had noticed him looking at her at all. "The coffee," he said. "This morning. It was different." She waited. "It was better. I switched to a lighter roast," she said. "The other one was pulling bitter past the 3rd minute. I thought you might not notice." Something shifted in his face. It was almost imperceptible. "I notice," he said, and turned back to his window. She left. She stood outside his door for 3 seconds longer than she normally would, which was unlike her. And then she walked back to her desk and opened her email, and sent Mathieu Ouellet a message about scheduling a preliminary consultation. She told herself the whole thing meant nothing. Over the following 2 weeks, Mathieu Ouellet came to the office 4 times. He was exactly what he had seemed on first impression: warm, competent, the kind of person who made work feel slightly less like a performance of endurance. He brought good pastries to the second meeting, the kind from the Haitian bakery on Notre Dame that Mireille had mentioned offhand when he asked about the neighborhood. He remembered that too. "You remembered," she said, surprised. "You said it like it mattered," Mathieu said, and shrugged as if this were simply the correct way to operate in the world. Mireille thought of the 9 months she had spent anticipating a man's coffee preferences in complete silence, and felt something move through her that she did not examine too closely. She and Mathieu had a working relationship that was, within 6 days, also something like a friendship. They disagreed productively about the eastern drainage specifications. He deferred to her read on Sylvain Dore's approval process because she knew it better than anyone. She caught a significant error in his subcontractor timeline and sent it back with corrections instead of sending it to Dore directly, which she explained was a courtesy. "You're protecting me," Mathieu said. "I'm protecting the project," she said. He smiled. "That too." The 3rd time he came in, he brought coffee for her. Not for the office. For her specifically, with oat milk, because she had mentioned it once in passing and he had again remembered. She was laughing at something he said about the drainage contractor when she looked up and saw Sylvain Dore through the glass wall of the conference room. He was supposed to be in a call. He was not in a call. He was standing in the corridor and he was looking at her. Not at the meeting, not at Mathieu, not at the project materials on the table. At her face, specifically, at whatever expression was on it. He looked away when she saw him, but not quickly enough. Mireille looked back at Mathieu and kept talking, but something had shifted in her chest in a way she couldn't account for, and she found she needed to be careful, suddenly, about what she was doing with her hands. Sylvain Dore began to be in places he had not previously been. He appeared at the edge of the open-plan office when she was at the printer. He found reasons to stop by her desk, always with a purpose, always a document or a question, nothing that could be called unusual, but with a frequency that was new. He asked for her opinion on things he had previously decided unilaterally. The Lakeshore West site visit. Would she prefer Wednesday or Thursday? The proposal formatting. What did she think read better, the condensed version or the detailed one? He used her name. Cote still, but he used it. She noticed all of it the way she had spent 9 months noticing things about him. Carefully, quietly, without comment. She filed it away and kept working, and told herself that noticing things was not the same as hoping for anything. She had been invisible to this man for 9 months. She was not going to rearrange herself around the fact that he had apparently recently discovered she had a face, but it was harder than she wanted it to be, because he was when he was actually present with you, not distracted, not managing 4 things simultaneously, not performing the role of Sylvain Dore for a room full of people who needed something from him. He was different, quieter, more careful. He listened in a way that felt uncomfortably rare, as if he was actually processing what you said instead of composing his response. He asked her once, out of nowhere, what she thought of the city's waterfront development plan. Not the Dore Group component. The city's. She told him she had opinions on it. He listened without interrupting, which was not his default mode, and when she finished he said, "That's a better read than I got from the consultants I paid." She did not know what to do with that. She said, "I've walked that waterfront since I was 8 years old." He looked at her for a moment. "Where did you grow up?" "Verdun," she said. You a pause. Something moved behind his eyes. "Point St. Charles," he said technically. She had not known that. It was the kind of neighborhood detail that rewrote a person slightly. It meant he had come from somewhere scrappy and working class and had built his way out of it, or through it, or into something else entirely, and maybe the edges that came off him, the density, the way he held space as if he had learned to defend it, made a different kind of sense. She did not say any of that. She just nodded and went back to her work. But something between them had quietly changed. Mathieu asked her to dinner. This was on a Friday, end of the day, in the lobby near the elevators. He asked simply and without pressure. A Thai place on Saint Denis he'd been meaning to try. If she didn't have plans, no obligation either way. Mireille thought about it for exactly 4 seconds. She had not had dinner with anyone who was not her mother or her sister in the better part of a year. Mathieu was kind and interesting, and he brought her coffee with the right milk without making a production of it. "Okay," she said. "Yeah, let's do that." She did not see Sylvain Dore at the other end of the lobby. He had come down from the office late, jacket already on, and had stopped when he saw them. Mathieu, in his easy way, leaning slightly toward her, Mireille with her bag over her shoulder, looking, for once, like she was somewhere she actually wanted to be. He stood there and watched her say yes. He watched her smile. He turned and walked back toward the elevator without going through the lobby. He took the stairs instead. He was not aware of having decided to do this. He was not for a few minutes particularly aware of anything except the dull, unmistakable weight of something he did not have a clean name for. He sat at his desk for an hour without working. Monday was different, not visibly. He was professional and even-toned and gave no indication of anything unusual. But Mireille felt it, the same way she had learned to feel weather systems, a change in the atmospheric pressure of the room. He asked her to stay after the afternoon briefing. The others filed out. She gathered her notes and waited. "How was your weekend?" he said. She blinked. In 9 months he had never once asked this. "Fine," she said cautiously. "Quiet." He was looking at his desk. The restaurant on Saint Denis. The Thai place. The air in the room changed. "The green curry there is good," he said, which was not what she had been expecting. "The service is slow, though." She felt her pulse do something deliberate. "You've been there, a few times." He looked up. "I grew up 2 streets over." There it was again, that small recalibration, the slight shift in the version of him she thought she had understood. "It was good," she said carefully. "Mathieu's good company." The name landed between them. He didn't look away. "I know," he said. "He's good at his work, too." A pause. "Cote." He said her name the way he had started to say it in the last few weeks, not as a utility, not to get her attention, but with a slight weight to it, like it mattered that he was using it correctly. "I have tickets to the Orchestra Symphonique on the 19th. It's a fundraiser. City Planning Committee. I need someone who knows the waterfront file inside and out. Someone who can speak to it if the conversation goes there." Mireille looked at him for a long moment. She had worked 9 months in this preferences, anticipated his moods, fixed problems he didn't know were problems, done it all in the closest approximation of silence she could manage. He had in return treated her like a part of the room that functioned well. Now he was asking her to sit beside him at the symphony and be prepared to talk about city planning. She could hear the subtext. She suspected he could too. "That's a thin reason," she said. Something she had never seen crossed his face, briefly, gone as quickly as it came, something that might have been caught off guard. "Yes," he said, "it is." She waited. "I'd like you to come," he said. "That's the reason." She thought about saying no. She had the words arranged. They were good words, clean and clear. The kind you say when you have spent 9 months being furniture for someone, and you have a small, hard-won sense of yourself that you want to protect. But she also thought about the way he had said it. Not performing anything, not negotiating, just stating it plainly, like a man who was not used to being plain about things and was trying. "I'll need to leave by 10, she said. "My mother has an early appointment." Something in his shoulders released, so subtly she almost missed it. "I'll have a car arranged." "That's not necessary. I'll take the metro." He stopped. "All right," he said. "Metro." She picked up her things. At the door, she paused. "Door." He looked up. "The coffee," she said. "I'll try an Ethiopian single origin next week if you want to adjust from there." He watched her, a beat past. "I'll tell you what I think," he said. "I know you will," she said, came and went. And then there was another evening. This one easier, less architecture around it. Then a Thursday where they both stayed late, and she caught him looking out the window at the river and said, without thinking much about it, "It looks different in spring than any other season, I think." And he said without looking away, "Yes, I've always thought that." Mathieu's contract concluded at the end of the month. He sent her a warm message about the park she had recommended, and said he hoped they'd cross paths again, and that the green curry place owed her a better experience than the service had delivered. She liked him. She wished him well. She thought of him with genuine warmth and the very mild, clean feeling of something that had been possible and was simply without drama, not what happened. Things moved slowly after that, which was right. Sylvain Dore was not a man who moved easily in emotional territory. He was more fluent in structure and strategy than in the language of just saying what he meant. She understood this. She did not rush it. But he tried. That was the thing she had not expected. He tried in the way that people try when they have spent a long time not bothering, when they have decided, consciously or not, that something is worth the unfamiliar effort. He brought her coffee once. He got it slightly wrong. Oat milk, but the wrong temperature. And she corrected him matter-of-factly, the way she would have with anyone. And he stood in her kitchen doorway and said, "I'll get it right." And she looked at him and said, "I know," and meant it. Some people, she had thought, a long time before all of this, only learn to see you when they're frightened of losing you. She had believed this was the sad truth of it, that being seen too late was barely different from not being seen at all. But she was standing in a kitchen in March with a man who was learning to make her coffee correctly, who had come from a neighborhood 2 streets over from a restaurant they had both eaten at without knowing, who had spent 9 months in her presence without looking and was now, slowly, imperfectly, with the effort of someone doing something genuinely difficult, choosing not to look away. The river from the window was beginning to turn green at the edges. Spring was coming back. She had waited long enough for it.